This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Welcome, everybody. This is Isabel Melgarejo, and this is A Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. Today, I have with me Caroline Thor. She is a fellow professional organizer. Unlike me, she's still practicing home organization and making everybody's lives easier. The reason I wanted to bring her today to the show is because we never pay attention to our homes. And I think that it is a great way to take care of ourselves. So welcome, Carol.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start it or what prompted you to become a professional organizer?
Oh, I could talk about this for hours, so I will try and keep it really brief. I am originally from the UK, as you can probably hear from my accent, but I've actually been living in Germany for the last 19 years. And I'm married, got 3 kids and 5 pets. So it's super busy in my house. And I am naturally very disorganized, which sounds crazy for someone who's a professional organizer. But 10 years ago, when my kids were still really little and my youngest was still 1 year old, I was a very stressed, overwhelmed mum who was finding myself on a very short fuse all the time, especially with the kids. I had been sent a copy of Good Housekeeping magazine by my sister from the UK, and in there was an article about this book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And I read this article, and the woman had applied the method in her home. And I thought, this sounds great. And I'm a bit impulsive when it comes to buying things. So I hopped onto Amazon, ordered it, and started applying the method in our home immediately that day. I remember really well following the instructions for the first category of clothes and getting everything out onto my double bed in my bedroom with my 2 little girls sat on the end who thought it was hilarious that I was doing this. And joy checking, whatever that was, I didn't really know at the time, all these clothes. I gradually, over a year, worked our way through our home, and I felt myself getting calmer. I started to feel in control, and I hadn't realized the impact my environment, our home, was having on my mental health and how I was feeling. And it sort of came to a head because it always used to be really stressy getting 3 little ones out of the house. Our hallway was really narrow in the home and it was always chaos. One day we were just leaving the home calmly, and my middle daughter turned around to me and said, "Why are you a nicer mummy now?" And I was like, whoa, okay. I hadn't realized that it was my environment that had been causing all this stress. So that was 10 years ago. And at the time I was teaching, I'd set up my own business teaching to expat community in Germany. When the pandemic hit, my classes had to stop. And I actually saw an advert online for online training for a KonMari consultant. I didn't even know you could train as a KonMari consultant. I didn't know these things. I just thought it was Marie out there doing all this on her own.
A quick interruption. The KonMari certification is Marie Kondo's a program that she runs, and she teaches people how to become professional organizers. And that's where Caroline and myself met. So just a quick interruption for everybody out there who may not know what KonMari is.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I mean, you forget, don't you, that not everyone in the world knows what KonMari is. So I said to my husband, I'm going to train as a KonMari consultant. This method has changed my life. It literally changed my life. I want to help other women, busy mums, feel this sense of calm and realize it doesn't have to be as difficult as it is at the moment for them. So I did the training and literally it has snowballed from there. I ended up selling my other business and I'm now doing this full time. It's snowballed into a podcast, an online course, an online membership, my in-person clients, my online clients worldwide. I mean, when this book literally changed my life. If you told me 10 years ago that I would have a podcast and be sitting here chatting to you and that this is what I'd be doing, I'd have told you were crazy. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's so nice to be able to go and help people feel less overwhelmed by their home environment.
You notice this as a mom, and I usually work with people who are taking care of their parents, and their homes are not always, but they can be chaotic because the same as with the small children, when you have other adults at home for which you have to provide care or provide any kind of support, or when you're that adult yourself and you don't have as much strength as you used to have, like you just keep forgetting. And I think this topic is great because it is a great way of setting order and living calmer. So, how do you start? Obviously, with clothes, but go ahead and like, how do you start and how do you keep this journey going throughout the years? Like, you've been doing this for 10 years. So, how do you keep every day practicing organization?
That is such a good question. And before I answer that, I just want to go back to the thing you said before about when people are in a situation where they're caring for somebody, whether it's a child or an older relative. You are totally right. When the environment makes it more difficult, all it does is add stress to that. When you can't find the thing you're looking for, when the medication's not in order and no one actually knows where the right medication is for the right time of day, and all the support system that you put in place just gets made more difficult when there's disorder in the home. So that's the first thing that I just wanted to say. And in terms of keeping the order up, the KonMari method, as you well know, is based on different principles. The first main one is visualizing your ideal lifestyle. And when you know how you want to live and you can create a home that supports that, it makes it a lot easier on a daily basis to keep on top of it and maintain it, because you have an incentive. You want your life to stay like this. And you realize how much easier it is once you've gone through all the categories and done the decluttering and then the organizing. So the incentive is that you get to live this ideal lifestyle. And that for me has been a game changer. I do not want to go back to feeling like I did 10 years ago. I don't want to go back to being that person with a short fuse all the time, not for me and not for my family. So that has been a massive incentive. And as I said, I am naturally very disorganized. And this has not come easily to me. And I've had to develop new habits and strategies in order to keep on top of it. And this is, I think, where perhaps as someone who is naturally disorganized, I'm in a great place to support my clients and the people, especially in my membership, because I understand how difficult it is, and that if you don't keep on top of it, it just slides. And if you don't put things back away every day, within a week, you're back to square one again. So I've really had to develop new habits. And I think doing that little by little. So I say to people, once we've done a category, say clothes, they really work on spending 5 to 10 minutes every day just making sure that they put those things back away again where they should be. Because once we've done the decluttering and organizing, that category, everything has a place to go back to. And it's practicing making yourself put those things back away each day. And when you get into the habit of doing that every day, it becomes easier. It's like doing a quick reset. And I always say, I don't have to do a big tidy up anymore. When I used to have visitors come and stay, it would be like a week-long action trying to get the house tidied up for anyone to walk in the door. It was horrendous. And of course, my parents used to come, or they still do, from the UK, and they stay for a week. So it's not like they're just superficially going to look around the living room. They see every corner of the house while they're there for a week. So, and I've got this thing, I don't want people seeing me being disorganized. I've got better at that as I've got older and realized actually it's my home. I can live in it how I want to. I used to do this crazy tidy up for a week. Crazy. I mean, it was just bonkers. Building these habits. And I was working with a client yesterday, and we didn't start with clothes because her ground floor living space was the thing that was just stressing her out. She wants to be able to open the front door and people can come in. The kids come home from school and they can just relax and not be surrounded by piles of stuff everywhere. We organized the space by categories. We went through and looked at what categories of things they were, decluttered those, organized them. And I left her with the homework of organizing the family to have a 10-minute tidy up every day, where everyone has to look around, see if they've left anything of theirs in that living space and take it back to where it should be. And if they practice that for a number of weeks, it will become habits eventually. They always say 30 days for a habit. Personally, for me, it takes longer than that. But the average, I think, is 30 days. Just building in these habits so that you can keep on top of it. And that, for me, has been the game changer.
I talked in the podcast about BJ Fogg. I'm probably her biggest fan. And he has a method in which you can create a habit within a few days. You have to repeat it and celebrate it. And I'm going to link that episode to the show notes because I think it's really good just matching how to build healthy habits into your routine. And I will share that with you as well, because I think it would be great for you and your clients learning how to build those habits and without them taking a long period of time. And I wanted to ask you, like, obviously, when you have kids, they don't have the option to say no. Well, they can, but usually you're the parent and you set up the rules. But when you're dealing with someone who's sick, for example, someone who's got cancer and probably has zero energy, or a spouse or a parent who not necessarily are going to follow your rules, how do you manage those relationships and inviting them to participate in keeping everything tidy?
That is such a good question. And it is such a difficult one because you are reliant on someone else's personality and way of doing things matching yours. And I actually, on my podcast, had an amazing episode with a lady called Julia Brickman, who is an MBTI, a personality specialist. And she was talking about, how the different personality types and why that causes so many problems. I think there has to be a level of compromise. There has to be dialogue and explaining to the person why it's important for you to try and keep things organized because it makes life easier and you want to offer them the best support that you can. But I also find, and I've never had this where it hasn't happened with a client of mine, when you role model taking your things and putting them away and making a point of trying to keep the clutter at bay, and people can see the effect that has on you, or not even see, they just sense it. They notice something's different about you. You're calmer, you're feeling a bit more in control. It has a ripple effect and it starts to become sort of quite infectious. And I had one client in particular whose husband was very anti-professional organizer coming into the home, not something that they needed. Didn't know why she was doing this, but she went ahead and booked me anyway. And we did the whole apartment apart from his office. And I met him on a few occasions and was having a chat with him. And he was a bit sort of reticent about the whole thing. And then 3 months after I'd finished with her, I got a phone call from her and she said, he'd like you to come and do his office with him. There is this ripple effect that people start to see there is sense in having these systems set up and building these habits and not having as much stuff and just feeling calmer. But when you have someone who is unwell or is incapacitated, it's a scary feeling for them because they've become reliant on you. They have lost their independence to some extent and they are reliant on you making decisions for them and doing things for them. And I suppose it's a way of them exerting control back a little bit by insisting things are done how they want them to be done. And you can understand that. I remember this with my grandfather, who lived to the grand old age of 101 and was living on his own till he was 100 and didn't want any support. And my mother going in and sort of trying to do things, but he wanted it done his way, even though he couldn't do it that way anymore. He wasn't wanting to admit that he couldn't manage anymore. And I think you have to respect that to a certain extent. And it's finding that middle ground, isn't it? That way of managing to do things in a way that's supportive without appearing to exert control over that other person and take their independence away from them. And I think that can only happen through really good dialogue and an honest conversation. And I think that's what needs to happen in those situations.
I find it really hard. In my particular home, it's my husband and I, and he is not the most organized person in the world.
It must be like living with me.
And keeping things organized, it's really hard. And just finding the right system has been challenging. I don't blame him. Like, if you didn't have that in you, it's really hard. And I think that comes like you either have it or you don't. I can put the example of my sister. She has 2 kids. Her daughter is the most disorganized person that I know. She can be in a room completely cluttered with boxes and stuff all around her, and she won't notice. Her son, even when he was 4 or 5 years old, he would come and put all his toys in order, and he would have a very specific way of putting them. If you were to move them, he would, hey, you move them. That's not how they are supposed to be. It was very interesting to see that comparison. And I think you either have it in you or you don't. And if you don't, you have to make an additional effort on keeping things that way.
And if you are the organized one, because in our family, that's my husband, he is super organized, you have to perhaps lower your standards a little bit. So the person that's less organized has to try and raise their standards a little bit. And the person who's super organized and likes to be in control of everything has to try and lower their standards a little bit. What I always say to people is, we're not aiming for perfectionism. We're aiming for a home we can live in that doesn't stress us out. And that is different for every single person. I
Yeah.
have walked into clients' homes and thought, and you called me because it looked better than my home does, like more organized, more tidy. But for them, there was something about it that was stressing them out. For them, it wasn't yet optimized and organized enough. Whereas for me, that would have been too much. My home, yes, it's organized, but it's not perfect. We live in it. I feel I've got it to a point now where I feel comfortable in it and I feel happy for anyone to walk in the door. And I'm happy to say, this is our home, take it as it is, or you can leave. I'm not going to tidy up anymore for you coming. You know, if the kids have left stuff lying around that morning, then they have. It doesn't need to look perfect. I'm not an Instagram show home. And I think that's what you sort of need to do. And my husband and I, we're so different. I, in the evening, will throw stuff into the dishwasher to get as much of the dinner stuff gone as possible and put the dishwasher on. And if it's not all fitted in, I will leave it standing above the dishwasher on the side until the morning. And when I empty the dishwasher, it can go in then. My husband will spend half an hour playing Tetris with the dishwasher, trying to get everything to fit in. He'll take stuff back out again and whatever. I can't be bothered. My life's too short for that. And if there's anything that doesn't fit in, he sets to and washes it up.
That's me.
Yeah, and that's his problem and that's your problem. I'm not going to waste my time washing up when tomorrow morning I can put it in the dishwasher and it'll do it for me. But it doesn't bother me them being left on the side. Whereas I know other people, my best friend will come to stay and she has to start washing up as well. She's like, you can't leave it like that. I was like, I can. I'm off to bed now. If you want to wash up, go for it. It is a real conundrum when you are trying to support people to find that balance of what's okay for you, what's okay for them, and sort of try and find a happy middle point.
It is a challenge, and because it is a challenge, and I know all of you out there listening to us might want to learn more, where can people find you?
The best place to find me is on my website, on my podcast page, which is caroline-thor.com/podcast. And there you can listen to my podcast, and all the links at the top of the page will take you to anywhere else on my website.
I think you interviewed me a very long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I can't even remember what an episode number it was, but it was a long time ago.
It was
Yes,
probably one of your first episodes.
it was. It was very, very early on. Yeah.
Yeah, probably it's been more than 2 years. So if you dig deep in there, you might find an interview with me.
I wish I could tell you what number it is, but unfortunately, off the top of my head, I can't. That's a shame. But if I let you know, you could always put the link in the show notes.
I will. We're recording this on June 5, and this will be a show for July. So we have a month.
Yes, a month to find out which one it was.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I will put all your link information in the show notes so people can find you. Also, if you're listening to us, remember I'm running monthly webinars. So if you want to join us on a webinar, I'm putting that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.